Hello, my name is Styger from Neumann van Rooyen Attorneys. A question we often get is that whether people should buy a house or rent a house. Now, although the answer is not short and simple, there's a couple of factors that one can look at in making up your mind or deciding whichever route to go. The advantages of buying a home is obvious, the first of which being security. It's your house. You are assured and secured as far as having a place to stay is concerned. But I think the main appeal for buying a property is the appreciation over time. However, one's got to be very careful because in certain areas, the appreciation is not the same as in other areas. For instance, you'll find that in older mine towns, the property increase or value increase is much less or basically equal to our inflation rate, which means that you either break even or in some instances you might be losing money as far as the capital growth is concerned. So that makes that argument not an easy sell. And then people are usually looking for rentals instead of buying. Another one that people like is creative control. I mean, it's your property, you don't need permission, you can make it comfortable. However, that comes with its risks as well, because one tends to overcapitalize on a property that you're staying in yourself. For instance, if you install a swimming pool as an example and you don't do it in a fashion that you get some professional advice, you might be spending 60, 80,000 rands on a swimming pool, but it only increases the value with 20 or 30,000 rands. Then that doesn't make it a good investment. And at the end of the day, when you want to sell your property, you find that whatever you spend on the property and what you bought it for is not what you're going to be getting out of it. And then there's no growth to speak of. So one tends to overcapitalize. You put in a much more fancier bathroom and a much more fancier kitchen that was actually required because it's your house, it's your right. You want to make it comfortable, but it ends up costing you at the end. Whilst when it comes to rentals, those decisions aren't yours. I mean, you move from the one house to the next if you want to, whatever is convenient for you. Obviously, a lot of people are looking at second and third properties as a kind of an income model to generate an income. However, keep in mind, there's a lot of pitfalls here because on capital gains tax, for instance, if it's your primary residence, a substantial part when you're selling your house is tax-free on the growth and the increase in capital. But the moment you're in the market of providing accommodation, the second and third house will not be exempted. And whatever growth you do have on that will be taxed on capital gain and also your income, because those income that you derive from rentals will be deemed as an income. So just get some sound legal advice from a qualified legal or financial advisor before you just merely think, I'm going to buy a house and the tenant is going to pay my bond. It's not as simple as that, especially when we get to the last one, as far as pros and cons is concerned, and that is maintenance. Obviously, when it's your own property, you don't mind spending on maintenance, but when it's a residential or a rental, then obviously that becomes the owner's prerogative. But when you are the landlord, you will be finding yourself in a situation where you often get calls about sometimes nitty-gritty stuff where the tenant insists that you have to come and fix it. And if you're not a handyman doing it yourselves and you want to outsource all of this, it might end up costing you more than what you're getting in. So there's a lot of things to be looking at and to be careful for, but it's still not a bad investment, because that's probably going to be the biggest investment that you make. Benefit of having your own house: if you have a bond, you can always refinance your house. You can, if you paid your bond in advance, you can always draw on that advance, let's call it like an overdraft if you wish. But then on the other hand, if you have a rental, rentals not necessarily, but usually are cheaper than paying, having bond repayments. And then whatever excess you have between what you were willing to pay on a bond and versus what you are paying on rental, if you have the discipline and you invest that, you might also have the same effect where you are growing in your capital, and that you have an investment portfolio. Instead of having it locked up in your house, you actually have it in some kind of liquid document or some other stock exchange or wherever you prefer to. So the one reneges on the other one. So both of them are available, but it's ultimately a matter of how much discipline do you have, what are your needs, and then what type of investment you want to make. But the younger you are, the more involved you're going to be, because you don't know where you're going to stay or for how long you're going to stay. And then I found that when people become older, they obviously want security and then they want to settle down, and then they're opt for buying. But there's not one that's necessarily better than the others, depending on the circumstances you're at, where you're staying, and what you intend to do with the property.